Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Today we got to talk about those baits that have been forgotten about and should be brought back to the forefront because they are proven fish catchers and ones that I think probably have caught more bass than 90% of the baits that are on the market. Like, they are time-tested, fantastic baits that we don't hear much about anymore. So that's what I want to talk about today. I also want to remind you that if you're looking for a little help in your area, check out the lake breakdowns that myself, Johnny Schultz, as well as Randy Blockett have done on the Fish the Moment website. The link is in the description. If you need one for a lake that hasn't been done yet, you can request a personal lake breakdown from yours truly, and I will get that out to you. All right, guys, I look at these baits and I think to myself, like, they feel like they're old school baits because they don't get used, they don't get talked about, and they've just kind of fallen behind a lot of the cool new trendy stuff that's come out. But every one of these is a proven fish catcher. So we're going to start it off, and this is in no particular order. We're going to start it off with the old standard tube. This is the Berkley Max Scent tube, one of my favorites. It's an absolute dynamite one for smallmouth because it's made out of the Max Scent material. But the thing with a tube is that it is a killer across the country for all species of bass. You can use it in so many different ways. You can throw it on a tube, just a normal tube. You can throw it on a drop shot. You can pitch it. You can use it as a trailer on your chatterbaits. All different things you can do with a tube. And it's such a versatile bait. But it's something you don't hear about that much. You know, there's a few guys out there that are kind of using it, but are talking about it on the down low. I just don't understand why a tube has kind of disappeared. I realize the drop shot is a great bait, and that took away a lot of the luster from the tubes. The same thing could probably be said for the Ned rigs. But the thing is, the tube catches fish everywhere you go. I don't care where it's at. You can find a way to use that bait to catch fish. So that's the first one. Next up, we got the casting jig, guys. The casting jig. This is an old beaten up one. Here's a new one in the package. I like the Luke Clausen casting jig by Dirty Jigs. But it's funny how, like, before the football head jig was developed and came out, the casting jig was kind of the main jig on your ledge lakes and your Tennessee River ledges. The football jig is relatively new. I realize at this point it's been around for a long time, but the casting jig was the jig to go for the ledges, and I still think it is a good way to go when you're fishing ledges, because of the fact that it is a bait that allows you to cast and work your jig back, like through whether a stroking motion or dragging it on the bottom, fishing shells, fishing through grass. There are a lot of advantages to a casting jig over the standard football jig. We don't want to get rid of it. You know, generally your hookup percentages are better on it too. You know, in this case, this one comes with the O'Shaughnessy style hook, super sharp, lighter weight hook. It's not a lightweight, but a lighter weight hook that just allows for great hook penetration. I honestly have really replaced a lot of my football jigs with the casting jig, and it's something that is somewhat new for me. I mean, I've probably only been throwing the casting jig for the last 5-6 years. I was very much a football guy, a football jig guy prior to that. And now this has almost completely replaced it because I see so many advantages to this over a football jig. So don't sleep on the casting jig. Next up, we got the Hula Grub, the Yamamoto Hula Grub. And I know I've talked more about this recently, but it is such an absolute killer bait that for years was like a huge secret bait on the market that nobody ever talked about. And then finally it went mainstream and everybody was catching them. And then over the last, I'm going to say last 5-6 years, it has really just kind of slowly faded away. There are still diehards using it successfully, but there are not that many people, you know, using it. I would think a lot of the newer generation anglers that are out there don't even know what a Hula Grub is, when 10-15 years ago it was like the mainstay bait. So honestly, for me, if you're looking to kind of go with a finesse presentation anywhere you would like to throw a jig, That's a great bait. If you're fishing weed lines, it's a great bait. If you're dragging on rock transitions, it's a killer bait. It catches all species of fish. It's one of my all-time favorite baits. I love that bait. Next up, just the standard ribbon tail worm. What has happened to us? We used to catch so many fish on the plastic worm, and now it's like you don't hear about people ever throwing it. Occasionally you'll hear about people throwing it on like a Carolina rig, but the old ribbon tail worm, like in this Tequila Sunrise, one of my favorite colors, is just one of the best time-tested baits that we've ever had in the bass fishing industry. There's no reason to put it away. You can still catch them, and you can apply some of today's newer techniques to it, like rig this up Nico style, or you can use them on drop shots. You can throw them on shaky head. You can throw them on all different types of gear, Carolina rigs. It doesn't really matter. They catch fish. They are very, very proven baits at this point, but yet nobody ever uses them. So don't forget about the old ribbon tail worms, guys. The last one is one that we hear a lot of people talk about, but it's one that I don't think people realize how versatile it is. This is the speed worm. The speed worm right here. This is the Magnum size one. They're made by Zoom. The thing with the Magnum speed worm that gets me, or the speed worm in general, is people view it as just simply a grass bait. It's really more versatile than that. You can fish it all around grass, but it's a great bait too if you want to fish it on the surface. Like there's guys down in Florida that fish it almost as a topwater bait. You can fish it through deep grass. You can work it slow. You can put it on a scrounger head and work it that way, or not a scrounger head, on a like a biffle head, a wobble head. You can, Texas rig it and flip it. You don't have just to be fishing grass. You can fish these things anywhere and catch fish. I mean, I've had really good days fishing the regular size speed worm for smallmouth even. I mean, it's in open water, just on sand bottoms. It's a great bait. Has really good motion that I think is very underutilized. And because of that, I'm putting it on the underrated list and one that people need to use more and get out there and kind of fish different areas versus the standard, oh, it's a thick grass flat, so I'm gonna reel a speed worm over the top of it. It's a much more versatile bait than that. So guys, those are 5 baits that we need to bring back. You need to put in your tackle box. You need to give them a try, because these are all such time-tested, proven fish catching machines that there's no reason for us not to be using them still on a daily basis. I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I know I'm going to continue to use all these, and the fact that people aren't using them, I think almost gives me an advantage because the fish aren't seeing them. And yeah, I'm excited to continue to use these bait. I hope that you will as well, and stay tuned for tomorrow's video.